This week, I discovered why the Ricoh GR3 and the GR3 X's crop tools are the game changers that you need to know to nail focal length and framing. Let's get into it. 28, 35, 50, 40, 50 and 71. These are numbers. Yes, despite my poor maths education, I know that much. But they're not just any numbers. These are the focal lengths that you can use when using the crop modes and the actual focal lengths on the cameras on your Ricoh GR3 and the GR3 X. On the GR3, you can shoot in 28, 35 and 50, and on the GR3 X, it's 40, 50 and 71. Why would you want to? Well, there are a number of reasons. For starters, shooting at different focal lengths teaches you about framing. 50mm could still be considered wide enough to capture your subject within the environment, but also tight enough that you don't have extraneous elements around the edges of the frame. And 71mm is great for street portraits. Or if you are like me and foam at the mouth whilst melting into a pile of steaming goo when someone asks you why you're taking a photo of them. 71mm is great for shooting your subjects from a distance. Also, if you're planning on buying a camera with interchangeable lenses or another fixed lens camera with a specific focal length, then testing out these focal lengths can help you decide which focal length resonates with your style of street photography. So not only are we going to look at framing at these different focal lengths, we are also going to look at the compression phenomenon that longer focal lengths have on composition. Plus, we're going to look at the exciting and fantastic 50mm and 71mm focal lengths. Setting up the Ricohs for crop mode is easy enough. Head down to page 5 on the image capture settings, and it's the third one down the page. It's important for on-the-go access to add it to a custom button. I've set up the FN button to use for the crop mode. Just before we jump in, for those of you who want to know my settings, on both cameras I shot in aperture priority, auto ISO 100 to 800 with a minimum shutter speed of 1/250th of a second. Throughout the day, I changed my aperture because of how bright it was in the sunshine, and I also wanted a greater depth of field for the seascape images, so I shot at anything from f3.2 to f11. When I was shooting directly into the light, I also frequently reduced the exposure compensation, and the focus mode was Auto Area AF in the center mode. As I knew, with Brighton being a quirky seaside town, that there would be a plethora of unique and interesting characters to photograph. The best thing about shooting at 71mm, in my opinion, is that you can mostly shoot anonymously. I think I said that right. Very few people on these streets clock me as I snapped away. Obviously, the downside is the lack of environmental context because the focal length is pretty tight. However, if you've got the space, you can move back further, you can get more of the background scene in your composition. Once you've cropped in digitally with these crop presets, you're going to lose a lot of data. But if I zoom in, For just 7.5 megapixels, there is surprisingly a lot of detail, and I don't see much degradation of the image. What do you think about the detail in these images? Would you use them for everyday use? Let me know down below. I was lucky that, for the most part, the light was pretty damn good on this trip to Brighton. As you're probably aware, it's a rare occurrence for me to shoot in good light and make a video about it at the same time. I think people wear much more interesting clothes during the winter than in the summer. What do you think? This is one of my favourite windows in the world. I'm not a street portrait kind of guy, but this 71mm is like a breath of fresh air to me. You see, I really do love this window. With a digitally cropped 71mm at f3.2 on the GR3 X, there's a little background blur. As you can see in this photo, at 28mm, you get a sense of space with the amount of depth in this image. You can see that the foreground is emphasized despite only being loads of pebbles. Plus, if you notice, there is an amount of negative space around the edges of the frame that can be distracting from the subjects. However, if you look at this shot that I took at 50mm, you get a much tighter frame where the elements are much more evenly balanced, with the red life jacket and the subject towards the edges of the frame, and the main subjects at the lower third and the upper third of the image. There is also less depth where we are bordering on compression, which might be more pleasing to some viewers. It's a much tidier composition that is more intimate, and in this instance I think it works better than the 28mm shot. But what do you think? Once again, this photo at 28mm, the wide-angle view really plays its part in exaggerating the foreground. Plus, you've got some elements on the edges of the frame that I think take away from the composition. It's an interesting look that might be more pleasing to some, but then you can take this shot at 35mm and you can get rid of those elements from the edges of the frame. And once I crop in at 50, we're down to 3 different subjects and the burnt out pier that's visible through the subjects in the distance. Obviously, it's a different ball game if you decide to move your feet to move in closer with the 28mm and snap away. But the purpose of this experiment was to show you the differences in these focal lengths. With this image at 71mm, this cool looking dude with his dog could be in his back garden. I quickly changed the crop mode to 50mm and there's some context as to where he actually is. Assigning the crop mode to a custom button and having them so quickly at hand make these crop tools invaluable in my opinion, especially if you're in a situation where you cannot or don't want to move and you want to get some detail shots of the scene that you are shooting. 71mm really does kill it for those detail shots. .35mm is that classic street photography look. It's easier to work with than 28mm, and you get enough space in the composition to capture the environment and your subjects. 40mm is still pretty wide on its own. With the right composition, you can get that sense of scale. You can even achieve this with a 50mm focal length. That is why I love 50mm. The 50mm focal length could well be my favourite. It's narrow enough not to be concerned about negative space around your subjects if you frame correctly. And on the other hand, it's also wide enough to let your subjects breathe with details of the scene around them. And also, similar to 71mm, you can keep a fair distance from your subject if you're not one for getting in close to them. It's a respectable, clean frame that renders the compositions the closest to what the human eye sees. As I headed to the station, I plugged in the 71mm for a quick farewell session. This photo that I took on the beach has to be my favourite of the day. And this is my other favourite. If you're after a hat, see this guy here. He's wearing one. If you're vegan or vegetarian, this place called Idea is great. I've been here many times and I can wholly recommend it. I saw this guy. I had to double back to capture him having a smoking moment. Goodbye, window. I'll see you again soon. Let it be said that this final subject had beautiful poise and natural grace. So what's your favourite focal length? Please let me know in the comments below. I'll be the first to admit that I struggle with getting in close at 28mm, but any focal length that's 35 plus, including now the awesome 71mm, I completely love. If you can do me a favour and please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already done so, I would appreciate it. However, if you want to learn how the Ricoh GR3 and the GR3X handles every in-body JPEG simulation, then watch this video here. Until we meet again, go forth and create.